Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to this week's Building Power. I'm your
Good
host,
afternoon.
Sister Zakiya Sankara, and I am happy to welcome my good friend Ruth Idakula. Welcome, Ruth. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here. How you doing, Zakiya?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy to have you here. So for the audience, Ruth is a good friend of mine. She is currently the project director at Dignity in Schools campaign, and Dignity in Schools campaign is family. I was a part of the Dignity in Schools campaign staff for several years and left to come here to Bright Beam. But Dignity in Schools is definitely still family, still very much a part of that network over there.
Again, my name is Ruth Idakula. I am a program director of Dignity in Schools campaign. Have been there for several months, a member for about a decade. The Dignity in Schools campaign has been a wonderful resource for myself and other organizers around the country as a resource, as a place of networking, as a way of really strategically thinking about, what we want education to look like, what kind of barriers do we need to kind of destroy, and just kind of dream about what we want for our children and families. I am a New Orleanian resident. I've been living in New Orleans now for 26 years, where I've been organizing for around 20 years. I am also a native of Nigeria, born and raised. I moved to this country in the early 90s and have been in New Orleans since the late 90s and got into community organizing kind of by accident. Things happened to me personally in my life that caused me to just systems a little bit deeper and just ended up doing a lot of education and just research. And I fortunately was just really pulled into community in a very wonderful way, where I got to sit at the feet of amazing organizers that go back to the civil rights era, that I got to sit at their feet. And
it looks like we're getting some feedback.
They just taught me a lot. And
your audio is kind of breaking up a little bit. Let's see here. Do you have strength?
Do I have what?
Yeah, talk now. Let me see if we can, because it was it was kind of choppy a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that wasn't choppy.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay.
It was when you were
apologize.
Yeah, it was just kind of getting choppy a little bit. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
So I was saying, that's okay. I was saying that New Orleans really embraced me in all of the ways, culturally.
That's a lot better.
Yeah, good. And I just got to learn from people who had been organizing going back to the civil rights era. I've been organizing locally since then, and have also been able to kind of stretch out beyond the national scene. My passion is racial justice. It always will, and whatever work that I am doing, I do it with that lens. I got into education organizing after Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana, and specifically New Orleans, in 2005. The state quickly passed legislation for the Recovery School District, which is a state entity, to come in and take over public schools in New Orleans after they fired all the teachers and staff. And then after that, subsequently, they opened up schools through the federal government grant, which was several millions of dollars to come in and pretty much scoop up schools in New Orleans. And as of now, we are almost 100% privatized, or as they, the other word is charter. So that's a fight that's still happening locally. But the work that we've been doing nationally with Dignity in Schools still continues. And we can talk about what that looks like. So that's me. I'm also a mother of twins. And that's kind of the reason why I do this work, is because of our children and wanting to give them a better place to live,
Absolutely. That mama instinct. That's certainly my reason for being in this work, is protecting my son and daughter, from these very anti-Black and racist institutions. As Black mamas, we have to inoculate our babies before we send them out into the world. So
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So I'm thinking about, what I know of DSC and the amazing work that's been going on there, and that's been now 10 years. I think DSC has been around, and DSC, that model is just amazing. The model of how there is support for grassroots community organizations in terms of communication support, in terms of networking support, network some teeth, if you will, to be able to eventually seek their own funding. What thoughts do you have about that in terms of the model, in terms of, do you get that kind of feedback from other groups that are a part of DSC? And are there any sort of new things on the horizon within DSC that you are at liberty to share with us?
Sure. The model of DSC, I feel like, I don't think that I've seen anything like it. Nationally, at least here in the United States. It is a model where the membership comes first, the membership makes the decisions. There is a kind of a governing body called the Coordinating Committee that is made up of elected organizations that sit on that committee. And that's where all vetting is done, all decisions are made around what kind of work we do, where we get money, what we use it for, blah, blah, blah. And then we have our subcommittees that are also made up of members that also kind of do more of the nitty-gritty work, kind of like supervising staff and fundraising and programming and those kinds of things. But with regards to the money, a third of our budget goes to the membership. And that is, for myself as somebody who was a member and still getting feedback from people as of today, it's a lifesaver for several reasons.
Right.
Most organizing that the kind that you do, the kind that I do, the kind that a lot of people that we know, is not funded by these big philanthropic organizations because they do not support organizing. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, that's really the simplest way to put it. They don't support organizing, and for a myriad of reasons that we could go into. We could maybe talk about that a little bit later. And so if you're going to do grassroots organizing in an authentic way that is truly about uplifting community, Dignity in School is one of those places where, I apologize, that you can get, go ahead, that you can actually receive funding to be able to do your work. And I know that for me, and I know folks here in New Orleans who are members, the $5,000 that we can get every year really is such a support. That way we can actually be about the work that we're trying to do instead of being co-opted by these bigger funders. So it really is an amazing model that I know has really supported people who are doing real grassroots organizing.
I think I want to lean into that because that is an issue in terms of the funders. And I obviously don't expect you to name your funders, but in terms of the funders, like you said, a lot of philanthropy, from my experience, right? Because I was executive of my own small nonprofit before coming to DSC. They are deathly afraid of Black organizing, right? And organizing in general.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of time, and it has taken me 10 years. Racial Justice Now will be 10 years old in November. And the organization is just now getting to a point after 10 years. Think about that, Ruth. Just now getting to a point where the organization is able to get enough funding to be solvent and to actually build capacity, right? We aren't always like just shoestringing it, you know what I mean? And trying to, do the work that needs to be done. And at the same time, fundraising shouldn't be that hard for Black folks in this country.
No, it should not be.
Okay.
It shouldn't be. And I will also say that, most of us who do this work, we're not rich people. Many of us are poor. Many of us are already struggling. And that is why we have such passion around the work, because we see on the ground how it impacts our people, right? And so I know that's why I started doing organizing. And I know that's why a lot of people do. And so you're trying to feed your family. You're trying to keep a roof over your head. And you also got to do this work,
Right.
And you're trying to get rich off of it. You just need a source to be able to sustain yourself and your organization and the few people that, you work with or for.
Because we hire other Black people. It's jobs for our people.
Come on. It's about economic power on some level. It's not a lot, but we need that independence so that, our politics don't get watered down.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this several times already in terms of, actually impacting what is happening on the ground, as opposed to being distracted or doing work that really is not the work that needs to be done. That's one of my personal pet peeves with foundations where, they'll have you in a nonprofit doing work that is just busy work and is not actually about supporting the community.
Yeah.
Right. The reporting and all the things that I find really
like we need another report to say Black people still oppressed. All we got to do is look around our neighborhood.
I worked for an organization here in New Orleans, and there was always this conversation about, well, we need more research. And at one point we were in a meeting, and a colleague of mine, we both said at the same time, we don't need any more research. We can see, we know, we understand how education works, right? Because there are good schools in this country that actually educate children properly, right? So that means that we know what works, we know what doesn't work. So why is it that a specific population in this country is being denied that right, that human right? So it's deliberate, and there are all kinds of institutionally, all kinds of blockages and ways in which we are consistently denied it, and that happens in various ways.
No, that's absolutely right. It happens in a myriad of ways, and many times, at least, what I've noticed is that sometimes organizations are forced to. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes organizations are forced to change the way that they do their work, or to get funding, and then some organizations refuse to, and then they also fizzle out, because being able to do the work at a very high capacity without being paid and sustained is, as you know, is unsustainable. So when we look around and say, well, why is this still happening in our community? And, why is X, Y, and Z, why are all these ills, still associated with Black people? And why are Black people in many ways in the United States, along with Native Americans, are a bottom caste, like the caste system in India, right? It was Michelle Alexander who first sort of gave me that language. In the new Jim Crow, she said it was really hard for her to come to a conclusion that Black people in the United States seem to be the bottom caste. And so when folks are asking questions about why that is, 9 times out of 10, it's still structural and anti-Black racism, because structural and anti-Black racism literally exists in every facet of life, including in unfortunately in some of our philanthropic sector. Edgar, Villanueva, who used to be at the Schott Foundation,
right?
And
just got off a meeting with Schott actually before I came on here.
Hilarious, right? So Edgar, as you know, he's off on his own now, and he has written this powerful book called Decolonizing Wealth. If folks have not, heard about that book, I highly, highly recommend it. And so the reason why I'm bringing up Edgar is because he has been bouncing around the United States and including some places across internationally to actually educate funders about the need to fund Black and Brown and Native people, right? Like if you do want the United States and other parts of the world, to be the absolute best that it can be, you have to begin to shift your practices, right? He's showing them their colonizer ways. Okay. And I was shocked when I saw that Philanthropy of Ohio invited him. I said, oh, Lord, they sure enough need to hear from Edgar. Because, Reparations is now started in Ohio before expanding to the DMV. And let me tell you, honey, they wasn't touching us with a 10-foot pole. They wasn't giving us a dime. Every dime that the organization ever raised came from a national funder, never from an Ohio funder. Never, ever. Wow. Because they were scared. Y'all call racial justice now? Oh, what y'all talking about? Black stuff, blackity black, black, and more black stuff. I'm not watering nothing down. We Black.
No, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. Like, what? You're fighting for Black people? No, man. We're not going to. No. Sorry, man.
I'm telling the truth. We Black over here. All the staff Black, the whole board Black, everybody Black. Next. What's the next question?
I had attended a retreat in August last month. And it was a retreat with some youth organizers from around the country that formed a coalition a few years ago behind Obama's My Brother's Keeper.
Oh, right.
Where there were millions and millions of dollars that were given to that initiative. And, these group of, mostly young Black men had formed a coalition and were really trying to get some of that money to do some grassroots organizing. And I heard this really horrible story about how for years they traveled around the country begging this person, begging that person, joking amongst themselves about how they were doing the tap dance, to get some money. Right. And, nobody was really looking at them. And so one of our ex-colleagues that used to work with us at DSC got them in the door to talk to a program officer who had a discretionary fund of, several $1,000s. Not several, it was like, maybe a couple $100,000.
Right.
They got one person in the door to have a conversation with him. And within 5 minutes, he gave them their first, it was a good chunk of money. I think it was maybe about $50,000. And they were able to leverage that to then get more money.
Right.
Yeah, but it was just really heartbreaking for me because they talked about going to the White House and being amongst, these Black men who attended these, what do they call them? Ivy League schools, and wanting to rub shoulders with Obama and not really, paying attention to what is happening to our young people in our communities on these streets, So it was just an amazing story in terms of just capturing how the whole philanthropy network works, right? And who they give money to, who they don't give money to when these so-called initiatives go out, and it sounds all pretty and wonderful and great, like the whole Obama presidency, right? And then, it doesn't go down to the people that actually need it. So yeah, I'm glad that, Edgar's doing that work because there are many of us that have been talking about that for years, about holding them accountable and having some system of training and workshops and education for them, even if they don't want to do right, to hold them accountable is on some level, to giving money to where it needs to actually go. So yeah,
absolutely. And I actually have a similar story. Shout out to all the Black folks who are working in philanthropy, who are carrying the shoulders of their entire communities with them in these foundations. Okay. I want to try to tell the Racial Justice Now story, or my story, in terms of being a fundraiser. and having my first grant to leverage was through a good friend of mine. She became a good friend who has now since passed on. Our good sister Allison Brown from Communities for Just Schools Fund, which was called it was called something else before Communities for Just Schools Fund, but I forget the name of it. I remember I was still in Dayton, and I traveled here to DC to have a meeting with her. And I knew that going into that lunch meeting that I was going to ask her for support, because it had just been announced that she was going to be the new executive director, and she was going to be changing everything around. Because before that, I wasn't able to even get into the door to even have a conversation. It was a white person who was the previous executive director. So first of all, Allison worked in the White House. She worked in the Justice Department under Obama. She is a Harvard grad. So she had all the check marks. So I wasn't really sure of what she would make of me or what she would think of me. Because we know that all skin folks ain't kin folks, especially as that Carter G. Woodson said, they done been to Harvard. They done lost their mind. They ain't even black no more. But anyway, she kept her mind. When I tell you she was so authentic and just so warm to be around, I left there with tears in my eyes that I didn't have to shrink myself. Do you hear me?
You're giving me shivers. It's giving me.
I didn't have to shrink myself to tell her about my work. She was actually very intrigued and was asking me questions and diligently taking notes while I was talking to her. And that conversation led to our very first, I would say, significant grant. We had received, like I said, support funds and things like that from DST and other folks who write smaller checks, $1,000 here, $2,000 there. And she said, well, what did you have in mind? And so, is most of the times Black folks, we lowball ourselves because we don't know the game. That's the other thing. We don't know the game. So I was like, I had already did a little homework. I was smart enough to ask another grassroots organization, well, you've gotten money from this group before. How much did you get? And so I used the number that they gave me that they got for 2 years. So I said, I know that's doable. They're an organization of a similar size. Gotcha. So that was my research going into it. And I asked her for that. She said, okay. I said, okay.
That was what she said. She said, okay.
I was like, wow. And I tell that story all the time. And when she was sick, we talk often. And I thanked her every single time. I said, I want to thank you, not just for the money, but for actually seeing me. You wasn't so highfalutin that you didn't even see or understand or connect, you know what I mean, to what the struggles of everyday Black folks are, because, you done went to Harvard, you work in the Obama administration, you know what I mean? You all of that and then some, you done did everything, you know what I mean? You are the Black elite, right? And she would always laugh to me about that. She said, oh man, she said, I wish I could tell you some of the stories that I even have. She said, sometimes I hate to get in the room, but other people like me, She's like, because, a lot of times they have, just lost their connection to where they came from. Because they have spent their whole life trying to get out. They don't want to go back. They don't even want to hear about it. You know what I mean? So that was our first grant, and then the first grant was $80,000 for 2 years, which is, is not a terrible, a whole lot of money, but it was a lot of money to me, baby.
I know,
especially somebody who was doing the work for free.
I know.
Have a job. Oh, that was a lot of money.
I'm right there with you. I know.
Okay.
I know.
And I used that to leverage. And not only did she do that, but she put me in contact with other Black folks in philanthropy and connected me to say, hey, this fund this Black organization. Now I say, other people may not say it, but I say it is because of Allison Brown's leadership that you even have so-called Black-led funds inside of organizations today. Because here in the DMV, honey, these foundations have come a long way. You got 3 big foundations here in the DC region that all have created in the last 2 years Black-led funds to specifically go to Black organizations. And and it's happening all across the country. I think Borealis is one. Like there's like philanthropy is slowly coming around,
Yeah.
Where they are. And you know what, after, hearing a few things from Edgar and other Black folks who've been telling them for years before Edgar wrote his book, that you all need, if you want things to change in these communities, you need to fund the people who are most impacted. The people who are most impacted are closest to the solutions. Stop funding these people who've never lived a day in the hood to know how to fix the problems in the hood. Stop.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Do you think that, because I feel like there's almost like this perfect storm that's happening. Do you feel that also the one of the catalysts is, the whole uprising that happened last summer? After Floyd?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
That is one of the catalysts. But even before that, there was a slow move to, in the foundation and philanthropy world. You got to think about it. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. The foundation and philanthropy world is huge.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge. And before that, they would only fund certain things that were Black led. And that was mainly like voting rights work. Like if you do voting rights work, everybody and their mama would
give you money. I know.
You know what I mean? But like these other issues, like what we do around schools, hard, man, hard. I mean, you the project director at DSC, you know how hard it is to fundraise for DSC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then police work, talking about defund the police, shit. Look, Black folks had to tear up the damn country to get some money.
I mean, the thing that has been interesting to me as program director of Dignity in Schools for the past several months has been, the amount of times where we've talked to a program officer, kind of having an introductory meeting, and they don't want to actually put money towards actually changing school climate or taking police out of schools. They want to fund like making sure that, while children are incarcerated after they've been put out of school, that they want to put money towards kind of, that thing, not actually, changing the whole system of schools. It's just been very fascinating for me. And how many of those program officers who kind of are in charge of funding around young people connected to schooling that used to be either police officers or wardens. That is really fascinating to me. Have you found that as well?
I have seen that. There are a lot of in fact, there's a program in Dayton called the Victory Project. They would get all kinds of money. And it was a white man that led the organization full of Black and brown kids. He would get all this money, again, after the fact. These kids have already been criminalized. Right. They've already been through the system. And like his, thank you, Decolonizing Wealth. Yep, that's it. Although I hate the Amazon link. See, can we, I'm politically against Amazon.
Good reason.
Let's find somebody else to buy the book from. Lord have mercy. Let's buy it straight from the publisher. Jesus. I think that, you're right. Uprising certainly helped because although there's a new report out and it's from, I want to say her name is Lori, not Villanueva, Villarosa, something like that. She runs the racial equity and philanthropy group, and she's actually based here in the DMV. I think she actually lives in Montgomery County, where I live. But they just released a report basically saying that all these private companies, remember during the uprisings and all that around George Floyd, there was a bunch of corporations that came forward that said, we're going to be doing this for Black people. We're creating a separate this and that. And they did a report and said that basically it was all talk.
Yeah.
Yep. It was all talk.
Unfortunately, that was kind of what I predicted. Yeah. So, okay. And let's like switch gears a little bit. I think that was a good conversation because it's necessary, especially for folks. If we talk about grassroots education advocacy, right? We talking about ways to build power. The revolution must be funded. We could talk about how it would be funded, right?
We can talk about that, but definitely that was a good piece for us to kind of engage in. I want to talk about how our DSC family switched from counselors, not cops, to communities, not cops, right? I'm excited about it. Like I was telling you in the green room before we went live, I am really excited that it says community, not cops now. But I have to say that during my time there, I remember it was one or two groups who pushed back against the counselors, not cops, right? And they were like, and I remember one of those groups was YJC. Y'all know I love Kim McGill from YJC. And I remember it was Kim that was like, no, we need it should be communities, because it don't have to just be counselors, right? Kim, her analysis is always just so on point to me. And I hope she's doing well. She's not on social media or anything.
Right.
I haven't heard from them in a while. But anyway, just share a little bit more. And if we have like a link that we can put in the chat for people to kind of check it out. I know that you guys have released it. How was that process to change it? And sort of what kind of feedback have you guys been getting from sort of partners in the field about it?
Well, that work was happening, as you were talking about, before I joined the staff of Dignity in Schools. So it was already in the process.
Okay.
But the conversation was that.
I think we're losing your audio again.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
got
sure
it.
what Can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you now. Okay, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know why it's going on. Okay. The conversation began, I think it was maybe it must have been right after you left that the conversation started. And what the feedback from membership was that we did not want to continue to perpetuate the idea of people who have degrees or people who are trained to do particular things. This kind of like professionalism that is touted as the be all and end all.
Right.
To put that in position of, these are the only people that can help children. Because let's be honest, a lot of those people perpetuate harm on our children as well, right?
That's right.
The counselors that have no idea how to be around Black children, let alone counsel them.
Right.
The teachers that don't, the administration, principals. And so the idea was that the community should be the people who are in charge of their schools in their communities, and to be able to dictate what happens in the schools, because the school is really the microcosm of the community itself, right?
That's right.
A lot of these police officers, resource officers, law enforcement that be busting our children's heads in, they're the ones that driving around the cop cars, pulling out guns on unarmed Black people, right?
That's right.
And so I think that, because of, I think also it's kind of like the time that we're in, where I think Black people are becoming more clear about how the system perpetuates itself and how it morphs and how it adapts. And so I think that they wanted to be clear about, we know who loves our children, who is most impacted, and people who really should be in charge of what happens in our schools and to our children. I think it was a very kind of poignant marker in terms of where we are, in terms of Black people and our better understanding of white supremacy and how it shows up and how it works. So I'm very proud. One of the things that we want to do continuing is to provide more spaces for political education, so that we continue to kind of build that muscle, so that we continue to kind of figure out ways that are outside of what I think the nonprofit industrial complex kind of boxes us into, in terms of solutions and creativity, in terms of looking at what works and what doesn't work. So yeah, I think it's a really fabulous move, and we're looking to kind of have more breakthroughs like that, which it seems like a very small thing, but I think that it shows to me that there's been a mind shift on some level collectively that I think that is very, very important marker.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I'm excited to kind of dig into it. DSC has helped support so many local police out of schools, community not cops across the country, including here in Maryland. I'm proud to say that my husband, as you know, Hashem, works with racial justice now, and Carolyn, who was a native of Montgomery County, Maryland, here, Montgomery County Public Schools became the first school district in this capital region, we're region DMV, to remove the police out of schools. And it was because Racial Justice Now was the first to call for police-free schools here.
Wow.
No one was thinking about it. No one was really thinking about it. And what was so beautiful that ended up happening out of that is that the students in Montgomery County School, high school students, beautiful, Black, brown, Asian students, the Progressive Asian Student Association. So Montgomery County, for folks who don't know where I live, is like the United Nations. There's a little bit of everybody here. I tell people all the time, I was like, being a Black American, my ethnicity or whatever is, we're in the minority because most of the Black folks here are either from the continent or from the Caribbean. And it's real.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah, Montgomery County. So PG County and Baltimore is where all the Black Americans are, right? I mean, like there's other folks, Black folks from the continent Caribbean there, but as far as Montgomery County is concerned, Black and from the continent and Black from the Caribbean are the majority of Black folks.
Okay.
Yeah, wow. So that has been very interesting organizing here, and certainly a culture shock. A little bit, but we're doing it. We're getting along. We're being family, and it's really been a beautiful experience. But the students really led the charge. Like once they saw that it was possible, that's all they needed to see, Ruth. Is when them babies saw that it was possible to get the cops out of the schools, they went full. They just took it over. And it was beautiful because that's what we want to see is that next generation, that advocacy, because they knew that it would affect and one of the young ladies, there was 2 Black girls that really led the police-free schools work here in Montgomery County. And you want to know why they got into it? Because one of them saw their little brother get accosted by an SRO, and she saw how security guards in school treated her brother. Not her, but she saw how they treated her brother. The other one got involved because she also said she sees how they treat the Black boys in their schools. So both of them were very charged up. And then there was a young Black man, Kyson, he's amazing. That also was one of the leaders. But they led that work with the support of certainly DSC. We use DSS materials to give to them. The first Counselors Not Out before this was updated. We gave them language. They were certainly supported by the Police Free Schools campaign through Advancement Project and AEJ. They had all the support they need, and they won. We won. Became the first school district. It was on the cover of Washington Post after 19 years of having SROs. They got them out. And I'm so proud of it. And I want DSC to be proud of that because we certainly use the materials and the intellectual property of the organization to make that happen. So thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. I don't think you've ever shared that story with me.
It just happened.
Okay.
It just happened. And listen, as a mom, I was so happy because, Amir's he went to high school. Amir's in 9th grade.
I think he did. I was scared to death.
Yeah, I was scared to death that he would be running into an armed SRO walking down the hallways in a high school. And I was like, okay, we got to get these cops out before my baby gets to high school. And we did, got them out of there.
It's scary. Can I just share, just as a mother, and having Black children and having Black boys, even though the rate that is happening to Black girls is also on the rise exponentially.
Absolutely, it's on the rise. Absolutely.
But you know, I mean, I do it less now because my youngest is in college. But when he was in high school, and it was that time where every couple of days, we were hearing about some unarmed man being shot by the police, and literally getting up, praying, and making sure that, you know, just praying that he would get home safely. Right. You know, I mean, the terror of that, and having to live through that every single day, and imagining that that's something that could happen to your baby.
Right.
You know,
exactly. That's exactly what was in my mind. And you know, he's very big for his age. He's taller than me now. My baby, you know, big feet, everything. So he's, you know, he's tall, but he's also like, if you look at Amir, you know what I mean? Like,
he's a child.
Yeah, he's a child. You know what I mean? But yeah, you know, just being a mom, like you said, of Black children, you know, that's that extra layer of, you know, like you said, just seeing what happens in the community. And unfortunately, you know, one of the reasons why we, you know, chose this area, even though it's hella expensive to live in Montgomery County, it's hella expensive to live in the DMV, period. DC is worse than Montgomery County now.
I'd be wondering how y'all do it, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, you know, the housing costs just, oh my God, girl, listen, we might have a whole show just on that. But anyway, we chose this community because number one, we had heard such wonderful things about the school. We, you know, heard it was a very diverse community. So, you know, coming from Dayton, Dayton is very segregated, but it's also not as diverse. And I'm talking about diverse, not just in race, but just ethnicity, just the spectrum, everything. You know, the food. I mean, there's all kinds of everything here. And then the proximity, like you said, you know, to DC is good. But we quickly found out that no matter where you are, Black folks are still being disproportionately impacted. Even in a rich community, right, where the schools, the funding ain't an issue at all. Because you know how they always say, well, they ain't got the money to do this.
Right.
You think of big districts like Chicago, you know, it's always a funding issue. Oh, it's not a funding issue here, baby. It's a straight up race and class issue. Straight up race and class issue. And so the type of organizing that needs to be done here is so much more different than what it was in Dayton. So much more.
So can you share a little bit about what that looks like in terms of how it's different? I'm super curious.
So number one, being able to organize people who English is their second language. Woo, Lord. Okay. We able to get it done because, like you said, we family. There's a sister that runs the Cameroonian American Council. Love her. Her name is Sylvie. We've been, you know, like joined at the hip with her to understand, you know, our African brothers and sisters. And because one of the things that we run into, and you and I have actually talked about this, is that a lot of times folks from the continent and folks from the Caribbean are told to stay away from us, to stay away from Black Americans. That we always in trouble, you know, we lazy and all of that. So we've had to overcome those types of things. And Sylvia and I have had real, like straight up conversations about that. And she's admitted that she herself has come a long way. Been politically educated. Yes. And I remember she would speak up at rallies. Sometimes, like even during the uprising last year, we had rallies and things here because the police in Montgomery County have killed 4 Black men already just in 2021. And people don't think about Montgomery County as a place that does that. You know, we're so liberal, you know what I mean? It's so progressive. They're progressive on everything but race, especially when it comes to Black people.
Isn't it amazing though? Isn't it?
Especially when it comes to Black people. And so but I want to answer your question. What got us connected is 3 of those 4 Black men were Black immigrants. See? One of them was Nigerian, one of them was from Ghana, and one of them was I forget the other country, but Ethiopia or Eritrea. There's a lot of Ethiopian and Eritreans in the DMV. DC
Yes.
and Oakland,
Yes, you're right about that.
population of Ethiopians.
Yeah.
So one brother, Finan Birhay, young, beautiful man, murdered by Montgomery County Police. So that's actually what got the African immigrant community to join forces with the African American community. Like, we've been trying to tell y'all, that's all they see is what you look like. They don't care what country y'all from. You black here, baby. I know that in Nigeria, y'all don't like in Africa, y'all don't call yourself that. Forget it. Like,
no.
It's foreign. You know what I mean? But the racialization in the United States, when you get here, you black. You know what I mean? That's what you are.
I mean, it's so funny. I was actually thinking about this yesterday because I've been listening to a lot of the online chat about the Haitian immigrants at the Texas border, and kind of everybody's feelings about, what that means and what that looks like, just listening to Black people's conversation. And, the conversation that came up about, immigrants from other parts of the diaspora not really understanding the politics of this country and, and being in solidarity,
Right,
and
right.
I was so grateful. And I mean, I have these moments, every now and again where I got it when I got it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't really struggle with that. It only took a couple of things for me to be like, oh, okay, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Whereas, I think for a lot of other immigrants, it's just really difficult for them to just, I don't know. I think it's a myriad of things, but
it's a myriad of things for sure.
Yeah.
And like I said, the class issue is another issue in Montgomery County. So not only do you have like a majority of Black folks who are both Black and immigrant or migrants, some of them, but you also have a lot of Black folks who got a little money here. You know what I mean? So, all these government jobs or whatever they G level is, they real highfalutin, honey. And they don't understand all these school discipline. Oh, we want our kids to get in the AP classes. Y'all talking about school discipline. That ain't our issue. You know what I'm saying? We want access to the best of the best in Montgomery County, and we'll sue. And there has been lawsuits around, and they're right. So it's a both and issue. So again, learning to come together. You know what I mean? Because we had to point out the fact that you all are ignoring the Black families and the Black children who are impacted by the disproportionate school discipline. And when they looked at the data, you know what I mean? When they looked at even the police data, you know what I mean? Right. When the police, for example, MCPS, Montgomery County Schools, did not have a whole lot of arrests like, say, PG County in Baltimore. It was nowhere near as high of the students. Right. But when they did make an arrest, guess who the F they was arresting? Black students. It was 9 times out of 10, just about every arrest that was ever made in Montgomery County Public Schools, the student was Black.
Wow.
And so that's what we focused on.
Right.
You're not going to say some of these kids are disposable. We don't believe that. And if you want to get in front of a news camera and say that you think these kids need to go to jail, then you be my guest. But no, we're saying that the school district needs to, because they got the money, right? The school district needs to take that money that they're spending on SROs and invest it in mental health supports for the students who need it, restorative practices. Treat these children like human beings. Treat these children like you treat the kids down in Bethesda, period.
Right.
Because we're all a part of the same school district. That's the other thing, is like there's even inequity even within the school district. I had to learn the difference between the fact that I live in East County. I didn't know East County was basically a slur for that's where all the Black and brown people live.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Even though it's nice, like where we live at. Like if you came to my neighborhood, you'd be like, oh, this is beautiful.
I've seen pictures, but not so even that is like,
even that, it's not Rockville, right? It's not Bethesda, it's not Chevy Chase, because Chevy Chase is completely unaffordable. You know what I mean? That's where all the millionaires live. So it's very interesting, seeing how the inequity even within the same school district is. It's been a very, very interesting few years of learning this community and learning how to organize.
Wow. Well, kudos to you though, because I I mean, it just sounds fascinating, but also it sounds, very, very hard, because I know, as an African, talking to other Africans about, what it means to be Black in America, it's difficult. So especially organizing, that's quite a feat. So,
Yeah.
my hat to this.
Well, I think a lot of Africans have been politicized themselves over these last few years, right?
I should certainly hope so.
Yeah. I mean, seeing what's happening with our Haitian brothers and sisters on the border.
Yeah.
That's jarring. They use whips.
I saw the pictures yesterday, and I'm just like, this is horrible, but I really hope that this is helping people to understand some things. I really do hope that it's helping people to understand some things.
Yeah.
This is crazy in 2021. And then, we could go into a whole other discussion about that. There's many layers to this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And the fact that we have, and I have to say this, Black people are responsible for the current occupant of the White House. Because his campaign was dead until he got to South Carolina.
Can we talk about that? Right?
And that's what makes it extra hurtful, right?
Yes, it does. It really does. This was the first presidential election, that I actually got emotionally invested in, because that was the first time that you were actually, we were having open conversations about reparations, where we used to have those conversations in the back somewhere where nobody could hear us. You know what I'm saying? Right. There were open conversations. There were conversations about student debt. There was conversations about, universal health care, things that I never heard about, right? That were actually, we're having on mainstream media conversations about. And remembering that Biden was dead, people were even
dead.
Biden,
but then he was on life support.
Then, we get to South Carolina, and Clyburn did his thing, rallied Black people together, and that was it. And I remember Black people chiding other Black people about, we got to get Trump out of office and blah, 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 and the other. And then I'm looking at this president that's not even a year.
Not even a year.
And we're looking at all kinds of failures.
Kinds of failures. Not even a year in. And here he is. His administration is specifically targeting Haitians, because he's bringing over plane fulls of Afghanistanis.
I know. Come on.
Planes full of them, dropping them off. And how much money did he set aside for them? Okay. And then you got your Border Patrol agents on horseback and whips when it comes to Haitians who actually have a legal right to get to asylum. I didn't even know it was against international law what our border agents were doing on the border.
Right.
Right. You anti-Black. So, I ain't gonna get too political here, but I wasn't feeling Biden. I did not vote for Biden. I've been
you and I had many conversations during that whole election
because
season.
Number one, you got a 45-year record for me to examine. We chose one racist to another racist. That's exactly the kind of choice we had. And to me, when you give me that kind of choice, I don't have a choice. Yeah, I'm not taking neither one of them. I'm tired of people telling Black people to accept the lesser of the two evils.
Right.
This is what the lesser of the two evils got us. Look at how they treated men, women, and babies on that board.
I know. I think that you were saying something very interesting a little bit earlier about how the children that you were organizing with, got to see the victory of law enforcement out of school, right? And
they knew it was possible,
right? And I think that one of the things that we, as a Black community here in America, is that I think that we've been beat down so much that we can't even imagine a better world for ourselves.
Ooh, that's right.
We can't even imagine a better world for ourselves, and because I also teach on the collegiate level, I often tell my students, like, imagine a better world. Like, what would that look like? And I usually start class that way. And it's hard to get them to actually think about what it is that freedom really looks like. what it
Yes.
means, to be able to not be bowed down because of money. What does it mean to actually be free? And get people to really think about that and envision it, because if you can get that into people's heads, they'll start to make different decisions,
Right.
And that's kind of the work that I wanted us to do with our membership at Dignity in Schools, is
Yes.
to get us to imagine a better world where we're not told, well, you got these two choices. Two choices is not freedom.
No, that is not freedom.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
not.
Thank you for that. No, it's
Yeah,
not. And
it's
listen,
not.
honey, they better not listen. I know we got 3 years to 2024. I'm done. Harris too, even if she on top of the ticket. No, because where you at?
Well, she's been kind of like ghost. I mean, I ain't seen Kamala. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I heard word from her. So I don't know what's happening, because I think they even put her in charge of like the immigration stuff. So I don't know what's happening. I really don't. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like all of that, yeah, you're the first person of color VP, and you know where to be found, Anyway, like I said, we can
And
talk
neither
about
one of them supported reparations. To me, that was my criteria. Yeah, So
Well, she said she wasn't going to do anything.
do anything specific. I ain't with that video. Look, so many people posted that video on social media. I ain't gonna sit up here and say I'm gonna do something specifically for Black people. Oh, okay, cool, girl.
Right. I mean, at least she was honest.
But they steadily doing stuff specific for all kinds of other groups.
I mean, and everybody should have what they need, and also the fact that we still don't have an anti-lynching law, but Asian people got the
anti-Asian hate. Yeah. They still ain't. Girl, they never even passed the lynching law.
No, we ain't got that. We don't even have that.
So not only are they bringing back horses and whips, they probably getting ready to bring back lynching. Damn.
I honestly, sis, I think it's going to get, honestly, until we as Black people get to a place where we say no collectively and actually do something about it, right? It's just going to get worse. And the thing that was really scary for me with the Biden administration is that it's always the administrations that come in with the smile on their face and the kind of like, diplomacy that we respect, right? Oh, well, he knows how to be presidential. You know what I'm saying? That those for me are the scary ones, because when people aren't looking, when people are distracted, is when they kind of slowly push in those laws.
That's so true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what happened with Obama.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's scary. But I mean, I feel like what we can continue to do is, the little victories that we can have on the, grassroots and community level is where we need to be. I keep saying organize locally, but also think globally.
Organize locally, think globally. That's a good thing to end on. Actually, I really appreciated this time for us. It just felt like we were actually having a phone conversation, quite honestly, because you and I always talk about stuff like this.
This is just how we talk all the time.
This is how we talk, right? I appreciate you. So proud of Dignity in Schools campaign. Tell my peeps I said hello, Natalie, Lakita, Tafari.
Everybody said to say hello to you.
Yes. Liz, like the whole, Partners for Dignity family. I miss y'all. I love y'all. And yeah, we'll have to have you come back soon someday. But I appreciate you. Thank you for all of the work that you all are doing. Thank you for resourcing grassroots organizations all across the country, from the Mississippi Delta to New York City, right? So I love you guys, and I appreciate you guys, and thank you for being with me today, Ruth.
We love you too.
We had a good I didn't put up a whole lot of comments, but we did have good people, a good number of folks watching. And you guys are welcome to keep this video too and put it up on your DSC video.
Will do. Thank you so much, sis.
No problem. Yeah, you